Hello everybody, welcome back to Tom Reads Things. My name's Tom. I hope you're all very, very, very well. So, it's coming towards the end of Victober. I can't really cope with it, to be perfectly honest with you. But I do still have another couple of Victober videos coming up. This is one of those videos. You can just hear my dogs running around upstairs. They've heard me talking to the camera. They wonder what the hell is going on. Let's get them, shall we? See, look. It's just the ladies and gentlemen at home. It's just the ladies and gentlemen at home. Look. Look. She's so gorgeous. Goodbye then. Do you want to come up? Come on then. Come on. Harry's here. Oh God. Oh. Good Lord. Oh God. You're a good boy. You are. You're a very good boy. Right, they're gone. Crikey, Riley. Right. So, I have another couple of Victober videos coming up. This is one of them. And tomorrow I am going to London to basically have a wonderful Victorian day in London, exploring Victorian London, basically. We're going to, me and my friend Sophia have been planning this day for ages. And we are going to go to Kensington Palace, to the Victoria exhibition. We are going to go to the Charles Dickens Museum. We are going to go to, where else are we going to go? We're going to go for afternoon tea, maybe at Fortnum and Mason, and just have a bloody wonderful time. I may even pop into Hatchards or Waterstones or Daunt Books or something like that and get some books. Who knows? So today I am doing a tag video. I haven't really done many tag videos, to be honest. I actually don't think I've done any. But the wonderful Emily over at Novell Novels, I'll link her channel down below. Do go and subscribe to her if you haven't already. She tagged me in this tag video. So today I'm going to be doing the Victorian Literature Tag. You know me, any excuse to talk about the Victorians. So let's crack on, shall we? There are quite a few prompts, so I'll go through them in order. So the first one is your no, hang on, bear with, got it wrong already. First go. The first question is the first piece of Victorian literature that I read. And for me, that is The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde by Robert Louis Stevenson. So I read this, goodness me, years ago, probably in my early 20s, something like that. I think I read it while I was at university, my first year of university, and absolutely adored it. And you can see there's a bookmark in here because I'm rereading it for Victober. It's for Kate's challenge, I think, where to reread a Victorian novel or story. So I am rereading this. I'm also later on today going to be reading The Body Snatcher, because which is part of this short story collection, because Kate Howe has done a reading of it for one of her Victober videos on her channel, and I really want to completely absorb myself in that, but I want to have read the story in here first. So I've listened to quite a bit of it, but I'm like, no, I need to read the story first. So I'm going to read this and then fully listen to Kate's Body Snatcher reading video, which I will link down below. The next question is, what is your favourite Victorian book? And this for me was actually quite a struggle, but I finally settled on Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So it's been a struggle for me because I love Victorian literature, and actually this Victober I have found a Victorian novel which is right up there in my probably favourite novels of all time, but I didn't want to mention that because I don't think it's quite my favourite Victorian piece of Victorian literature of all time, but it's definitely right up there, and I will be talking about that in my Victober wrap-up, which will be coming at the end of this week. So for anyone who doesn't know, Jane Eyre is a what is it? When it just follows one person throughout their life. Billy's Nomad. Builder's Bread Man? What is it? I can't remember what it's called. Something like that. But so yeah, it follows the story of Jane Eyre throughout her life, all of the different people that she meets, and you absolutely go along that journey with Jane. It's a fantastic, fantastic novel. I've banged on about this book so many times this Victober. I'm sure you all know the story of Jane Eyre anyway. it's a fantastic place to start with Victorian literature, I think, and it's actually a really great place to start with the Brontes as well, with Charlotte Bronte. So yes, if you haven't read this book, do pick it up. It's just wonderful. The next question is, who is your favourite Victorian author? And for me, I really think my favourite Victorian author is Charles Dickens. I love Charles Dickens novels. I've read, I think, about half of his works so far, so half of his novels, fully completed novels so far. I've read Nicholas Nickleby, Bleak House, David Copperfield, Great Expectations, some more, but I can't remember what they are. And I have absolutely loved them. I think the only one that I was a little bit not too keen on was The Old Curiosity Shop. Just because of the way that it was structured, and I wasn't a great fan of the ending. But Charles Dickens' writing style is absolutely phenomenal. A lot of people think that it's overly complicated or flamboyant, or that his writing is too based on kind of caricature characters, and his characters aren't realistic enough. And do you know what? I'm fine with that. I don't care. I don't read his books to find realistic characters. And actually in his later works, a lot of his characters are a lot more realistic. But that's why I love him. His characters, Miriam Margolyes, who is a big Charles Dickens fan and scholar, said that his characters are unashamedly big. They're not caricatures, they're just big characters. And the world is full of big characters, and those are the characters that Charles Dickens looks at, especially in his earlier works. And that's what I love him for. That's what I love his writing for. That's what I love his stories for. He really can tell a story, and I just absolutely adore him. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to tomorrow going to the Charles Dickens Museum. We will be taking you along with us, so you can expect that in my Exploring Victorian London vlog later this week. Can I have a kiss? Can I have a kiss? The next question is, what is your favourite Victorian couple? And for me, my favourite Victorian couple appears in the novel Great Expectations by Charles Dickens. My favourite couple, oddly enough, is Miss Havisham and the man who deserts her just before her wedding. I find that might be a bit macabre and a bit weird to say, but the reason I love those characters as a couple is, firstly, it's been a while since I read this, but I don't think you meet the gentleman who abandoned her before her wedding. I can't remember. But what I love is the exploration of the effect that coupling and that love interest has on Miss Havisham as a character. The whole reason Miss Havisham is why the whole reason why Miss Havisham is as she is because of the torment and the utter heartbreak that this man put her through. For anyone who doesn't know, without giving away too much, Miss Havisham is very affected by the fact that her love interest leaves her, and she basically stops time in her house. From the moment where she found out that he left her. She remains in her wedding dress. Everything in the house remains untouched. And I love the exploration of the effects that has on Miss Havisham. I find it really, really, really interesting. So yeah, my favourite Victorian literary couple is Miss Havisham and the man who jilts her. The next question is, what is your favourite Victorian villain? For me, there are so many fantastic villains, and there are way too many to choose from, especially a Dickensian villain. We all love a Dickensian villain. Ralph Nickleby in Nicholas Nickleby is just absolutely horrific as an example. But the one I have chosen to talk about today is from a novel that I read this year. I read it in August/September, and it's not a kind of a standout villain that you would remember from Charles Dickens' sort of overall works, but it really ingrained itself in my mind, this villain, and that is Mr. Dombey from the novel Dombey and Son. So on the outset of it, Mr. Dombey doesn't necessarily seem like the sort of archetypal Dickensian villain, but the way that he treats Edith, his wife, is just horrific. It is awful, and Charles Dickens' exploration of power struggles between this married couple is very, very, very well done. And there is a subtlety to Mr. Dombey's evilness that really struck a chord with me. And I just think, my goodness, you know, the way that he writes his dialogue between Mr. Dombey and Edith, and Mr. Dombey and his sort of employee who he gets to do a lot of his dirty work, is just really well written and really and subtle enough to make you intrigued and interested even more. It's not a sort of outright overly exaggerated villain, but he is a very well-rounded character in his sort of negativeness, if you like. So yes, if you haven't read Dombey and Son, please do. It's a really fantastic novel. It's very long, but it's not Dickens' longest. So yes, do give this a go, and watch out for the character of Mr. Dombey as the novel progresses. He just gets worse and worse and worse. The next question is, what is your favourite Victorian novel where somebody dies of consumption? And again, for me, it has to be Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. So somebody dies of consumption. I won't give it away too much, but somebody dies of consumption pretty early on in this novel. I think it's consumption anyway. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's consumption. Is TB consumption? I think it is. I think it's the same thing. I don't know. But anyway, I think it's about a quarter or a third of the way through this book that it happens. Maybe a quarter of the way through this book. And oh my God, it's heart-wrenching. It is utterly, utterly heart-wrenching. And you can kind of see reflections of Charlotte Bronte's own experience in losing her sister Maria to consumption or TB, reflected in these sorts of scenes in this novel. It is heart-wrenching, it's heartbreaking. Anyone who has read Jane Eyre will know the death that I'm talking about. And it's one of the things that, although it's horrific, really makes this novel for me. So yes, favourite Victorian novel where somebody dies of consumption, it's Jane Eyre. Oh God. Maybe I've got consumption. So the next question is, what is the longest Victorian novel that you have read? And for me, that is the humongous David Copperfield by Charles Dickens. So by word count, this is Charles Dickens' longest novel. And it depends how many pages it will be, depending on your edition. Yeah, this is, in most editions, this is around 950 pages or so. I absolutely adored this novel. Anyone who has been watching this channel for a while will know how much I love David Copperfield. It follows the story of David throughout his life, literally from the night that he is born until he is an adult man and he is set on his path in life. The people that he meets and the things that he does, the experiences that he goes through are absolutely amazing, and it's just such a fantastic story, such a wonderful narrative that you never really feel like this is a 950 page book. So there are some fantastic characters in this. Betsy Trotwood, my goodness, who's part of the Dame Betsy Trotwood fan club? Me! So yeah, this is a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful book. Do not be put off by its size. It is absolutely phenomenal. Read it. The next question is, what is a Victorian novel that you feel is underrated? And for me, that is The Taming of the Shrew by Henry James. So I don't know whether you would consider this Victorian, because although it was written in the Victorian era, it's written by an American author. I'm going to still assume that this is classified as Victorian. But this is such a fantastic novel? I don't know. It's very short. My edition is just over 100 pages. This follows the story of a young lady who goes to look after two children at a big sort of stately home in the countryside, and the ghostly experiences that she starts having and sightings that she starts seeing in the house, and the way that the two children are affected by this presence in this house. It is utterly terrifying. If you liked like The Picture of Dorian Gray, or you liked The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, pick this up. It's fantastic. It's a brilliant, spooky read for Halloween as well, and that fits right at the end of Victober, and it's very, very short. So if you can, cram this in. It is bloody brilliant. Just stoking the fire again, guys. Look at my pyjamas, aren't they nice? So the next question is, what is the most beautiful Victorian classics that you own? So I was very, very, very lucky to be gifted by my stepdad Merlin a set of the complete works of Charles Dickens in a wonderful sort of book cabinet holder type thing. I'll insert a little clip here if you haven't seen them before. Here they are. Just look at those. Aren't they wonderful? There we are. Here's one of them. This is the Pickwick Papers, and as you can see, they're quite old editions. I'm not really sure when they're from, but they're absolutely beautiful. And you can see they all start with these wonderful illustrations that they have in them. And as many Dickens novels are, these are illustrated with just some of the most beautiful, fantastic illustrations. And I cannot wait to read some of these. They're quite delicate. There's me throwing them around. They're quite delicate because they're quite old, but I'm not really sure when they're from, but they are absolutely beautiful and I love, love, love them. Yeah, I don't really know when they're from. I don't really know how I can tell when they're from either. So yes, these are the Victorian set of classics that I have that I think are the most beautiful, especially next to my old face. And the last question is name 3 Victorian books that you would like to read that I haven't read yet. So I'm going to name 4. The first one is Sketches by Boz by Charles Dickens. So this isn't really one that is spoken about very much in terms of Charles Dickens' works. I'm not really 100% sure what it is. I think this is his first published book in 1836 and heralded an exciting new voice in literature. It's a varied collection of observations, fancy and fiction. It shows the London he knew in all its complexity, its streets, theatres, inns, pawn shops, law courts, prisons, and of course, the River Thames. I'm going to be there tomorrow exploring Victorian London. I can't wait. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to reading this. Another Victorian novel that I haven't read, when people are going to be like, what? And actually I haven't really read any of this author's work. I read about 50 pages of one of his books and was like, nah, not for me. But I do intend next year to read some more of his work because lots of people rave about him. And the novel I'm talking about is Tess of the D'Urbervilles by Thomas Hardy. So yeah, I haven't read any Thomas Hardy. I read 50 pages of Under the Greenwood Tree and didn't enjoy it, but I am definitely willing to give Hardy another go. Actually, if anyone knows where a good place to start with Thomas Hardy is, do let me know. It may well be this. I think actually Katie at Books and Things mentioned in one of her videos, I'll try and find it and link it down below. She mentioned that a great place to start with Thomas Hardy was Far from the Madding Crowd. So I might pick that up. But yeah, I really want to read Tess of the D'Urbervilles. It sounds like a really interesting story and it's very famous. So yeah, I'd like to be able to read it so that I can bore all you lot by talking about it. Another novel that I would really like to read that I haven't yet is Silas Marner by George Eliot. So I read Middlemarch by George Eliot and really, really, really enjoyed it. I was hoping to reread it for Victober this year, but I just have not had time. But yeah, I've read about 30 pages of this and then put it down, but I am definitely going to be picking it up again at some point in the first half of next year. I still don't know whether Middlemarch was just a fluke or whether I'm going to love George Eliot's writing. I'm not sure, but I'm very much looking forward to getting to this. I've heard really great things about it from people that do like it. So yes, looking forward to that. And the last book that I would like to read that I haven't yet is Adam Bede by George Eliot. So I was just watching Kate Howe's week 4 Victober vlog on YouTube. I'll link that down below. And she was talking about how she's been reading Adam Bede whilst knitting, which sounds fantastic, by the way. And she said that it really snuck up on her as a book that she wasn't expecting to love as much as she did. So yes, watching Kate Howe's week 4 Victober vlog has really got me excited to read Adam Bede. So that is another George Eliot that I'm very excited to read. Okay guys, I'm going to shut up now. That's quite enough from me for today. I am so excited to be going to London tomorrow to be exploring Victorian London. I am going to vlog the day, so that will be up for you all to watch on Wednesday. afternoon at some point. So yes, I'm so excited. Do let me know what you think of any of those books that I've been speaking about in the comments section down below. Let me know what you're reading in this latter half of Victober, and I will catch up with you again soon. Okay, thanks, bye. That's that, isn't it, really?